Okay, listen closely for a second. Can you hear that? It's faint, yeah, but it's there. A baby crying, coming from somewhere. Well, somewhere it shouldn't be.
It's a sound that just instantly gets your attention, makes you concerned.
Exactly. But what happens when that sound comes from a place where there's absolutely no reason for it? What if it's just the first sign of something really unsettling starting to unfold?
Mhm.
Today, we're doing a deep dive into a story that really challenges how we usually think about reality. It's drawn from this compelling source, Authority, by Ralph Nelson Willett.
And this isn't just a story, is it? It's more like a chronicle, a step-by-step account of what can happen when unseen forces are, well, invited in.
Invited in, yeah. And the extraordinary, sometimes really desperate things people do to face them. So our mission today is to unpack how these events progressed, from these small, weird things to big, dramatic confrontations.
And we'll explore these maybe surprising ideas that come up in the narrative, like spiritual authority, permission, deliverance. It's quite something.
Yeah.
What's really fascinating, I think, is how this account gives you, the listener, a kind of unique case study. It offers insights into phenomena that really push the boundaries of what we think is, normal.
Right. It shows really clearly that journey from total disruption back towards trying to find peace when your reality just gets completely flipped upside down.
So where does it all start?
Okay, let's get into it. It starts pretty normally. A quiet evening at home for Mark and Shelley J-Dubs. Picture it, they're just unwinding, maybe reading in the living room. Peaceful.
And then bang, a loud thump from upstairs, from their son Pete's room. Unmistakable.
Yeah, a solid thump. And the source is clear, it wasn't just the thump. Right after, they hear this drag of sound, like something heavy being pulled across the floorboards above them.
That would stop you cold, wouldn't it? You definitely exchanged that look. What on earth was that? Look.
Totally. So they call out for Pete, silence, no answer, and the house just feels suddenly uneasy. So they head towards the stairs, towards Pete's room, and that's when it gets properly chilling. Why do you think a baby crying, specifically, is so unnerving in that moment?
That's a good question. The source really emphasizes they both heard it. Faint, maybe, but clear. A baby crying from Pete's room.
And Pete's not home.
Exactly. Pete's not home.
Yeah.
I think it hits something primal, A baby's cry means vulnerability, need. And when it's coming from somewhere impossible, like an empty room,
Yeah.
it's just terrifying.
That inherent helplessness.
Yeah.
But then here comes the kind of anticlimax, or maybe the denial starting. Mark goes up, cautiously touches the doorknob.
And the crying just stops instantly.
Just like that. He opens the door, flips the light, and it's just a room. A normal teenager's room, dark, empty, nothing out of place.
No baby, no source for the sound, nothing. He checks everywhere, right? Closet, under the bed, the window's locked. He just vanished.
Vanished. And despite both of them hearing it clearly from inside the room, what's Mark's first reaction?
Rationalization. He tries to tell Shelley and maybe convince himself, oh, it must have been the neighbor's TV.
Even though they knew where it came from, it's that human instinct, isn't it? Trying to cram something inexplicable into a logical box, even when it doesn't fit.
Absolutely. And the source really highlights that initial struggle, that denial. It kind of sets the stage because those sounds, they were just the beginning.
Yeah, the real trouble, the core of it, seems to center on the teenagers. Mark Jacobs, who's a pastor, was already worried about his son, Pete.
Right. The source mentions Pete had been sleeping downstairs on the sofa for weeks. Looked exhausted, dark circles, even caught him lying. Mark felt something was deeply wrong. He was already praying about it.
And that leads to this really pivotal moment. Pete Sunder, who's Pete Jacobs' best friend, shows up at Pastor Mark Jacobs' office.
And he's a mess. The source describes him as, visibly distressed, trembling. He just breaks down, crying, and finally spills the beans about what's really been going on.
So what was it? What did he confess?
He told them about this time at the Jacobs house. Pete Sender, Jennifer, and another girl, Angie. Just hanging out, goofing around, as the source puts it.
Okay.
Then Angie pulls out a spirit board, like a Ouija board with a planchette.
Yeah.
Says they can talk to ghosts.
And right away, there's resistance, isn't there? Jennifer's reaction is pretty strong.
Very strong.
Yeah.
She knows what it is, calls it wrong, warns them not to fool with this.
Yeah.
She feels so strongly she actually just leaves.
Yeah.
Wants no part of it.
That's quite telling. Foresight, maybe?
Definitely seems that way in hindsight.
Yeah.
But the boys, Pete and Pete Sender, they're skeptical at first, but Angie's really into it, convinced. And then comes the key moment. The invitation.
The invitation, what exactly happened?
Angie apparently closes her eyes, looks up, and just says out loud, "If anyone is out there that wants to talk to us, we invite you to join us."
Wow. And the boys.
Both Petes just quietly say yes.
That idea of an explicit invitation, giving permission, it feels really central here, doesn't it? Even setting aside the supernatural, think about how we invite influences into our lives, sometimes without really thinking.
Exactly. The source really frames it like opening a door. And once it's open, you have to deliberately shut it. And in this case, something answered.
What happened next?
The planchette starts moving. First to yes, then it spells out a name. Jason Cantrell claims he drowned. The boys are surprised, maybe still thinking it's Angie moving it, or just weird.
But it doesn't stay weird, it gets dark.
Very dark. The board spells all D-E. Then it just starts repeating die, die, die over and over, faster and faster.
Oh, man.
And then the room light clicks off, plunging them into darkness, except for a candle. And the planchette, nobody touching it, flies off the board and hits Angie right on the cheek.
Hits her.
Hits her hard. And Pete said that was the moment. The moment they knew this is not just a game, pure horror sets in.
I can only imagine. And from there, it wasn't just sounds or weird feelings anymore, was it? It became physical.
Oh, yeah. Undeniably physical. Pete Jacobs, Mark's son, showed his dad this bruise on his back, a perfect handprint. And he said it was already a week old.
A week-old handprint bruise.
Okay.
And Pete Sender?
He got hit. Hard. In the gut at school. Just doubled over, couldn't breathe, knocked him right down.
And Pete Jacobs again.
Even worse, he described being picked up, physically lifted off the ground and thrown against the lockers, then picked up again and thrown across the hall. Just sheer physical assault.
This is terrifying. No wonder Pete was sleeping on the sofa.
Exactly. Both Petes were being harassed at night. Thrown out of bed, bounced on while they slept, held down. The sofa was the only place Pete Jacobs felt safe enough to even try sleeping.
But the absolute peak of this, the most chilling thing Pete described, was the car accident.
Right. He tells his parents, and Pastor Miller's there too, that the ghost just suddenly appeared right in his face inside the car, screaming.
In the car! While driving!
While driving. He grabs the steering wheel, yanks it hard left, straight into oncoming traffic. He slams on the brakes, tries to stop, but he says the car wouldn't respond. It just kept going.
And he crashed.
Head-on collision. The terror in his voice when he recounts this, it described as just palpable.
Unbelievable. So this brings Pastor Miller into the picture more centrally, right? And he has a different take on this ghost.
A very different take. He sits Pete down and says, look, this isn't the ghost of Jason Cantrell. That's a lie. What you're dealing with, he says, is a demon pretending to be him.
A demon?
Mm-hmm.
And who is the real Jason Cantrell? The source gives some background, doesn't it?
It does, and it's disturbing stuff.
Yeah.
The real Jason Cantrell had actually kidnapped a little 4-year-old girl from their own church years ago. Thankfully, she was rescued. He drowned 2 years before this happened.
Okay.
But after his death, police linked him to the murders of 3 other little girls. So the demon, using his name, wasn't random. It was latching onto something real, something dark and local. Gave the lie credibility.
That makes it even more sinister. And Pastor Miller explains how this entity got involved, right? Back to that idea of permission.
Exactly. He tells them point blank, you used the spirit board. You invited whatever was out there. You opened a door to a demon and gave it permission to be here and permission to hurt you.
Permission to hurt them. Wow.
Yeah. He stresses, these entities, demons, they aren't friends. They're not a harmless way to contact spirits. Their goal is to harm.
That concept of permission, again, it's such a powerful idea in this narrative. It implies a kind of spiritual law, almost. You invited it, now it has a right to be there until that permission is revoked.
Precisely. It shifts the responsibility, doesn't it? It wasn't just bad luck. It was a consequence of an action, an invitation.
And Pastor Mark Jacobs, Pete's dad, makes an important distinction for Pete, too, doesn't he? About what's happening to him.
Yes, a very key distinction from the source material. He tells Pete, you are being oppressed, harassed, attacked, troubled by this spirit, but you are not possessed.
So, tormented from the outside, essentially not controlled from within.
That's the idea. It defines the problem and, crucially, affects the solution. It means there's a way to fight back, to get rid of it.
Okay, so they have a clearer picture now. It's a demon, it's here by invitation, it's oppressing them. What's the plan? Pastor Miller lays one out.
A very clear, decisive plan. It involves prayer, obviously, and fasting, which he reveals members of the church had actually already started doing for the families.
Wow, community support already in action.
Yeah, and then anointing with oil. and a really thorough physical cleansing of both Pete's and Pete Sender's homes. And he emphasizes the role of authority, parental authority, familial authority in carrying this out.
So it's not just an individual battle anymore. It requires a kind of collective, authoritative action to push back.
That's exactly the sense you get. Reclaiming ground that was given away, using the authority structures already in place, particularly within the family and the church.
So the first step towards deliverance was this communal act, wasn't it? After church on Sunday.
Yes. Pete Jacobs, Pete Sender, and their families gathered. The source says it was in a side chapel. The elders, senior church members, they all came. They anointed the boys and their families with oil and just prayed over them.
A concert of prayer, the source calls it.
Right. And Pete Jacobs described feeling this comforting touch, something familiar and reassuring during the prayers, a sense that maybe things would actually be okay.
It must have been powerful. But then came the practical, hands-on part for the next day, Monday. What were the instructions?
Very specific.
Yeah?
Pastor Miller told the families, stay home, no school, no work. Your job today is to go through your entire house, room by room.
And do what?
Identify and remove anything, literally anything, that does not belong in a Christian home. He listed examples: alcohol, certain books, certain music CDs, even computer files, stuff on their iPods back then.
Anything questionable.
Exactly. His rule was, if there's any doubt, get rid of it. And not just get rid of it. Take the stuff outside and destroy it. Burn it.
Burn it. Wow, no half measures.
None at all. And the Jacobs family really committed to this. Mark, Shelley, Pete. And interestingly, the source notes, Pete's appetite came back that morning. He hadn't really eaten properly in weeks. A small sign, maybe, but significant.
Yeah, physical shift. So they went through the house.
Methodically.
Yeah.
Pulling out things like an old coffee cup that said what happens in Vegas, DVDs, CDs, books they felt weren't right. Just bagging it all up.
And Pete himself had a moment, didn't he? Something personal.
He did. It's quite poignant, actually. He remembered a magazine he'd hidden under his mattress, one with a naked girl on the cover, as the source puts it. He felt ashamed, but he went, got it, and threw it in the trash bag with everything else.
Taking personal responsibility, owning his part and cleansing his own space.
It seems like it. A really important step for him. So once they gathered everything from both their house, and Pete Sender's family did the same.
They took it outside to burn.
Right. They had this steel barrel, loaded everything in, including the spirit board itself, which Pete had fished out of the trash earlier, poured kerosene on it, lit it up, and just watched it all burn down to ash.
A very symbolic destruction of the things they felt had opened the door or were simply incompatible with the life they wanted.
Very symbolic.
Yeah.
And necessary, according to the plan. But the final acts, the real confrontation, happened when Pastor Miller and one of the elders, Mr. Hessen, arrived.
Right, to do the anointing and the final clearing of the house itself.
Yes. They went room by room, anointing the doorways, praying. They saved Pete's room for last. You can imagine the tension.
Absolutely. And Mark Jacobs, Pete's dad, he takes the lead here, doesn't he? Asserting his authority.
He does. As the head of the home, he stands in the room and speaks these words of command. The source quotes him, "To any spirits that exist in this house, this is my home. I am the head of this home. You do not have my permission to be here."
Powerful words.
He continues, "By the authority given to me by Jesus Christ, I order you out of my home never to return. You may not contact or harass any member of this family."
Does anything happen? Is there resistance?
Oh, yeah. Big time. As Mark is speaking, the bed suddenly jumps, like physically lifts off the floor. Pete's laptop gets knocked off his desk, crashes to the floor.
Whoa.
Then 2 holes suddenly appear in the drywall. Just punch marks, like someone slammed their fists right through the wall from the inside.
That's terrifying. How did Mark react?
He didn't back down. He just kept speaking the command, but louder, his voice rising, more forceful. And then, right as he's directing the command outwards, towards the window,
What?
the window smashes. Outwards. Glass explodes across the front yard.
Smashes on its own.
That's how it's described. A violent expulsion. And in that instant,
It stopped.
complete cessation. The tension just evaporates from the room. The source puts it very simply. It was over. Everyone felt it. A profound sense of release, of victory.
Wow. That is incredibly dramatic. A literal breaking point. So, after all that, what happened to everyone? Let's start with Pete Jacobs. Did the deliverance stick?
It seems like it did, profoundly. The source checks in 4 weeks later. Pete's sleeping normally, sometimes still on the sofa,
Hmm.
but now just because he wants to, not out of fear.
That's a big change.
Huge. He's reading his Bible again, having morning coffee with his dad, reconnecting. Mark says he feels Pete is more man now than boy, like he'd gone through something intense and come out stronger, more mature.
That's positive. But what about the friendships, the group that started this whole thing?
That's where it gets complicated. Jennifer, the girl who left at the beginning, she completely avoided them afterwards, just cut ties.
Understandable, maybe. And Pete Sender?
He and Pete Jacobs still saw each other, but Pete Sender said it always felt weird. There was this shared guilt, this shadow hanging over them. The friendship was never really the same. Damaged.
That makes sense. And Angie, the girl who brought the board, who got hit by the planchette, her story is much darker, isn't it?
Tragically dark. The source says her dark circles got deeper. She was falling asleep in class, avoiding people. That bruise on her cheek from the planchette was still visible weeks later.
Oh, no.
And then, just about a week after the main deliverance event at the Jacobs house, Angie. She hanged herself in her closet, committed suicide.
Oh, that's devastating. Absolutely devastating. Pete Sender was inconsolable, it says. And Pete Jacobs felt immense guilt, even though he knew logically it wasn't his fault.
Crushing guilt. And this is where that theme of authority comes back in a really heartbreaking way regarding Angie's family.
Right. Pastor Mark Jacobs tried to help Angie's family, didn't he? What happened?
He and Shelley went to offer support, offer help, maybe the same kind of spiritual cleansing they'd done. But Angie's father, Kurt McVeigh, just exploded. Vehemently rejected them, swore at them, threatened them, told them to get out.
He refused the help completely.
Completely. And Pastor Jacobs later explained his understanding of it, based on the source's perspective on authority. He said because Mr. McVeigh, as the authority in his home, rejected the help, he was essentially rejecting it for his whole family.
Making it harder for Angie.
Making it much harder, yes.
Yeah.
For Angie to seek or receive that kind of spiritual help on her own, she would have essentially had to reject her father's authority first, which is a huge barrier for a teenager, especially in that kind of vulnerable state.
So the father's rejection kind of closed the door on that specific avenue of help for her, according to this perspective. That's heavy.
It really is. It adds another layer to the tragedy, suggesting how these dynamics of authority and permission can have consequences that ripple outwards, sometimes with terrible finality.
So the source isn't just telling a ghost story. It's really digging into these complex ideas about spiritual dynamics, family structures, authority, consequences.
Absolutely. It uses the narrative to explore these deeper themes. But the story doesn't quite end with the Jacobs family and their immediate circle. There's an echo later on.
An echo? What do you mean?
Years pass. New people move into the same house where all this happened. A man named Mohammed and his pregnant wife, Rihanna.
Okay. And?
Mohammed is doing some work on the house, getting a room ready for their baby boy. And he finds this stain on the wall. A faint but stubborn stain shaped like a Christian cross.
A cross left by Mark Jacobs, the previous owner.
Presumably. It annoys Mohammed, who's Muslim. He tries to paint over it multiple times, but it keeps bleeding through the paint. He eventually gets so frustrated he cuts the section of drywall out completely just to get rid of it.
Just wants Mark gone. Okay.
So he fixes the wall, everything seems fine. Later, he and Rihanna are relaxing downstairs, listening to music, reading, and then they hear it.
Oh, tell me.
Faint, but clear. Coming from upstairs, from the room that will be their son's nursery.
A baby crying.
A baby crying.
Wow. Full circle. Right back to the very first sound Mark and Shelley heard. That is unsettling.
Deeply unsettling. It connects the beginning and the end, leaving you with this chilling question about what exactly that stain represented. Was it just paint or something more?
So, reflecting on this whole deep dive, we've gone from what seemed like a silly game with a spirit board to intense spiritual oppression, physical attacks.
And this powerful display of collective faith, asserting authority, the cleansing, the dramatic confrontation.
And the aftermath. Healing for some, broken relationships, terrible tragedy for Angie, and that lingering question about the house itself.
The source really weaves together narrative in these concepts of permission, authority, the nature of the conflict. It's a lot to unpack.
It really is. It leaves you thinking, doesn't it? What was lingering in that house? Was that cross stain just a mark or a sign of the battle fought there? Did the cleansing leave a remnant, a scar on the place itself? Or was it something else entirely waking up again?
That final sound, the baby crying again for the new residents.
Yeah.
It makes you wonder about the persistence of these things, the unseen impacts of our actions long after we think something is resolved.
What forces might exist just outside our normal perception? And what does it truly take to find lasting peace when those forces are disturbed? It definitely leaves you with something to think about.